till get the notification, and then we shall begin. And I think that is it. Yep, seems good. Right, so forward in track map, and like that. There we go. Right, good evening everyone, hello and welcome to the FPRL Tier 2 Championship, a bit later than usual. Usually this is on a Friday, but the day of going live it is a Sunday. This was due to currently the World Cup and England taking on the United States of America, which ironically is where this race is taking place. We don't speak about that game because I think there was just a bunch of snores. Anyway, hopefully the race this evening is going to be nothing but frantic, non-stop action, much like it was in the Tier 1 race, right down to the wire. Ali Ferrari taking the victory with just 5 corners left to go. I'm Cruiser 1872, and joining me once again in the commentary box for tonight's Tier 2 race is the lovely voice of Monkey Boy Chart. Right, we're off to our first major goof at the start. It seems as though I forgot to include party audio, so that entire intro from you was not heard. Oh,
I just included my audio, just popped up now, but should be all good.
This
But
hasn't
yeah,
been my week, has it? This just hasn't been my week at FPRL. I had the catastrophe in the Tier 3 race, then I had my monumental mess up to the end of the Tier 1 broadcast, and we start off Tier 2 with another cruiser moment. So that's 3 for 3. Well done me. Anyway, we're off on a flying lap to begin with more leader just going through turn 1 now in that beautiful Ferrari. And speaking of Ferrari, and Silverside Boy has indeed confirmed that I didn't include party audio. Yes, I know. I don't need to be reminded. Just more leader going through the S's section now, and plenty of yellow flags towards the end of Sector 3 there. I see an Aston Martin and Alfa Romeo on the minimap being joined by a Williams. Everyone wanted to get some clear track before they begin their flying lap. As Mo Leader going through Sector 1 now, down towards turn 11 now in that Ferrari. Most corners on this track fairly deceptive, and as the sun glaring in the eyes of Mo Leader in that crash helmet, just have a look at the telemetry here and see speeds of nearly 200 miles an hour down the back straight before slamming on the brakes in towards turn 12, a corner which I have mentioned before you could cut that corner as long as you're not too greedy and stay within track limits. And just this complex now towards the end of the lap, now going through turn 16. Ali Ferrari will know this corner all too well, getting past MS Drive in the Tier 1. And then this horseshoe corner, which I don't want to remember too much from my run in Tier 3. Then turn 19, careful to avoid the sausage curb on the inside. And Mo Leader using up all of his ERS, which is going to slow him down a little bit towards the end of the lap. But across the line for the Ferrari, it's a 134.4, so that puts him currently in P1 overall. And I believe, we have had a spinner, I think, in Stiffmeister at the exit of Sector 1. As I was scrolling through here to see the Red Bull of Genevieve begin their lap. Stiffmeister, it's not been a good start there for the Williams.
yeah, I have to say they're actually more leader putting in a 34.4. That's not actually a bad time for a Tier 2 pace, the first lap out on track anyway. As Nigel Piggle, I've just been riding on board with him, and he took a spin at turn 17. We've got some more cars coming around now. He's just got to make sure that he avoids, or they avoid, the spinning Piggle, who's now back on track. It's now going to be, I think, Stiffmeister. Oh, it's not Stiffmeister, sorry. It's going to be Shadow's going to set their lap time. Law then, and he's making his debut tonight actually, goes fastest with a 33.8, a very good time there. 6 tenths clear of More Leader at the moment. We've got Nigel Peel coming around now to set start his next flying lap. It will be Tiddlewink has invalidated. That's behind him. We've got Silverside Bonnet out lap. Stiffmeister now coming towards the end. He's crashed as well or spun off. So, yeah, looks like the first run. There's not a lot of drivers actually getting in some good times here. Into the pits as well is Klutz Jack. So, yeah, Cruiser, not really anyone setting any times, really. Only the three at the moment in Lawmore, Leader and Pickle. And Pickles isn't even respectable at the moment.
Yeah, pretty slow start to our single qualifying session this evening, it must be said. With only 15 drivers currently, I would say 16, we're being joined later, I believe, by the championship leader of Pines as Junivane, picking up where he left off in Suzuka, going fastest so far. But I suppose, as I was going to mention, we've only got the 18-minute qualifying session before our main race due to the shortage of drivers. And as I mentioned Junivane as well, we shall actually have a look at the main standings, which originally I believe was 45 points covering the top 5. It's now 41 points covering the top 6. So Junivane, after that victory in Suzuka, firmly put in his name in the mix for the Tier 2 Championship. But it's IFC Pines that still leads the way, only by 14 points though, to the Alfa Romeo of Phenom, as we're just watching Snedden go around the final 2 corners now, but is backed off considerably on that lap. And we'll jump over to Phenom also, I would say a home track as well, for the American driver, but he has got soon to be 3 races in his home continent, but I think we'll just count this as the mainstay since it's probably the only legitimate racetrack. A slight dig there at the Americas. Anyway, Stiffmeister in I completely forgot Stiffmeister on his outlap also wanting to make amends after that earlier mistake. And we got Silverside Boy actually in 3rd place in that McLaren. Go on the Silverside Boy. 151 points, so the top 3 covered by 25. Then we've got Shadows in 4th on 140, Junivane in 5th on 139, and Snedden in 6th place on 135, and as well Midfield Maestro too on 125 points, and they're no slouch as well in the Tier 2 Championship. Unfortunately, they're not here this evening too, but taking the place in the Alpha, and not the Alpha, excuse me, the Alpine is, as you mentioned earlier, Monkey Boy Kurt, is the debutant of Law, and also a familiar name I think people will have known from the Tier 1 race is Poya too, making their return to FPRL but making their Tier 2 debut. So I think this is really more for Poya just to see where they stand in our Tier 2 category, but I think they know not to get in the way of a championship fight. But I suppose having dropped down from Tier 1, you can't really blame her if she's up there at the head of the field.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, she'll be she should be amongst the top ones up there, Paella. She's dropped down from Tier 1, like you said, and yeah, admittedly she wasn't near the front of Tier 1, but she did have a good fight with her driving while she was in there. Would definitely fight for some positions and can score a few points. Was also good in the F2 Championship for the couple of races that she did, so I expect to see her up there as much as the likes of our usual lot of Ginny Vane. Pines, when he joins, actually should be joining quite soon. He's only got 9 minutes to get in and actually set a time, so he'll want to be getting in pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, just going back to the times, still a lot of improvement, I think, here from most of these drivers that have set times, especially people like Tiddlewink, TJ Shadow in the 35, Silverside Boy with a 34.9. Did have a race. He's already had some practice around here in the Tier 1 race on Thursday night, so he can maybe use that to his advantage. But yeah, I definitely think this isn't going to be the final standings as it stands at the moment to come 8 minutes time. Here comes Phenom, the 2nd place man in the championship. What can he do? He goes up into 3rd place with a 33.8. But yeah, I mean, debutant Law still at the moment in P2. Good lap from him at the moment.
As mentioned as well, we won't be seeing these standings towards the end. Of course, Snedden starts to set their lap, so does Klutz Jack. Poya still in the pits also, and will be joined by our championship leader, hopefully very, very soon, as we'll just follow Snedden around these final few corners. And I think he might have made a mistake somewhere, or he's backed off considerably on that lap, showing 2 minutes 45 on the lap time delta, and yeah, I think that was probably an outlap for Snedden. Just Roadmasters reliable as always, and Klutstad up to the line now. It goes 9th on a 35.4, just ahead of Tijum now. Same scenario I think for Tijum. A man who started this championship off very well, but is just slowly, I wouldn't say degraded down the field, but I think it's just really, it's just, I don't know what's happened with Tijum. It had such a strong start, but it's just slowly like faded away for the Aston Martin. But a driver, I'm sure, who's very, very desperate to get some points on the board and finish this season the way he started it.
Yeah, well, like you said, he had a great strong start to the season, along with Ravenzilla, who was here in the starting few races in Tier 2. Then Nigel Pickles come in, and yeah, with the lack of form from him lately, it's allowed McLaren, Snedden and Silverside Boy to really get ahead in that Constructors' Championship, which I think they now lead by around 40 points with 4 races to go. It was Aston Martin leading it by a bit of a margin near the start, but like we've said, the form just hasn't been there in the last few races. But they'll definitely be hoping to get higher than what they are at the moment on the grid of 10th and 12th. So a few yellow flags in Sector 2. I just think that's people slowing down, I believe. Snedden is now coming to the end of his lap, his first flying lap, and we're going to see what he can put in now. This looks pretty quick. It's probably going to go into the top 5, I think. Yeah, it goes 4th place with 33.9. Only 1 of 4 drivers to break inside the 133s. We've still got Poella in the pits to set a time. I'm just going to make sure that they're not just waiting for 1 lap, or they actually are in the session. So I'm just going to send her an invite just to make sure. And also Pines, because he's only got 5 minutes left. So I'll just do that now.
And seeing as well, Nigel Pedro taking 4th place away from Snedden, also on a 133.8. And we are seeing as well in qualifying, there's a few gaps in the field, I suppose, with Junivane, the man who's definitely the one to beat so far in qualifying on that 33.6, as Tijum goes 9th on a 34.8. So we are seeing these groups starting to form a little bit. We've got Bolly as well in P7, a driver who hasn't really been talked about too much in this qualifying session, as we have our poll for pole up in our Twitch chat. So you've got just over 5 minutes to get your votes in and see who can go on pole, as Law definitely want to set a tone of the field. He's took the provisional pole so far by 7 thousandths of a second over Junivane. So Law, although it is his debut race, looking like there's no nerves, and he's certainly up for the challenge this evening around the Circuit of the Americas.
Yeah, fantastic time there from the debutant. Normally, they sort of take a couple of races to get into it, especially with a new league, but he's having no problems at the moment. It's like you say, 7 thousandths in front of Ginny Vane. However, we do know Ginny Vane's quali pace, and he is 2 tenths up as he comes around the final few corners now. So will we see that provisional pole go back to Ginny Vane with these 4 minutes remaining? The last corner he comes now, and I think it's back to P1 for Ginny Vane, and there it is, 33.3, 3 tenths faster than his previous lap, and I think that's to be very difficult to beat, to be honest, Cruiser.
Challenge accepted, says Ginny Vane, and 3 tenths clear up at the top goes that Red Bull. And as well, in the Tier 1 race, Ginny Vane did make a one-off for, I believe, the Williams team, and it's fair to say he did hold his own very well. So with that extra bit of confidence, and I would say as well, a bit of a perspective as well, knowing what he has to do on track in terms of strategy and how to manage his tyres and manage his fuel load. Also, Junivane does have a lot of advantages going into this race, and another driver we've not talked about too much is Tiddlewink, a driver that Junivane knows all too well after that, I would say, brilliant tussle in Zandvoort. Unfortunately, Tiddlewink just couldn't quite get past the Red Bull. But we have seen too, Tiddlewink does have a good amount of qualifying form, but just hasn't really put it towards race pace, as we've got yellow flag in Sector 2. I think that's the Ferrari of Morley. They're just keeping it the way of Phenom on their latest lap. And Tiddlewink going through the horseshoe now in towards turn 19. As mentioned, careful on the sausage curb. That was very well took there from Tiddlewink, and now the final corner manages that almost just as well, and up to the line for the Alpha Tauri, it's P7 for Tauri went on a 34.4, some 1 second behind Junivane. So that's just an idea as how quick Junivane is around this track currently, with just under 3 minutes left to go. So we're getting to that stage now where everyone's going to be having that last lap gambit to try and dethrone Junivane, who seems almost untouchable right now at this moment in time.
Yeah, well, he's into the pits now. I don't think he's going to get out again. Still nothing from Poella. She's not coming out. And you know, an invite has been sent a couple of times just in case that she's not in the lobby, but I don't think she's going to get out here unless she literally comes out now for one flying lap. She's got to be quick about it. She's literally got about 30 seconds to get out of that pit. But yeah, looking a bit. I'm not going to get her out of there. Looking like Pines as well, the championship leader, still hasn't joined. Now, I don't know if he thinks that it's a full quali tonight and he can join in Q2 and Q3, but it is short quali. I've been told in the Discord that he has been told that it's short quali, so potentially could we see the championship leader not racing tonight? I mean, people like Phenom and Silverside will be loving it if that is the case.
And just as we mentioned Poya too, there she is, out on track with just under 2 minutes left to go. So it's going to be a bit of a rapid outlap, I suppose. Will burn out some of that fuel and will burn, well, I would say burn some of the fuel and also get a lot of heat in those tyres. But you just got to be careful not to burn them out too quickly. And as well, if Pines isn't going to be here tonight, I would say it's a bit of an open goal as well for, I would say, for everyone in the top 5, especially Phenom, who is currently in second place. And I don't think they're going to improve, but they are going for one more lap here, just going through the horseshoe, to try and have that chance, or have a little bit of hope going in towards the final few runs, and he has backed off, so it's going to be second place only for Phenom around, I still don't know if this is a home track, but just for reference we'll say it is. Anyway, Poya and Junivane too going down the back straight, and wondering if they would play some team games here, try and get a bit of a slipstream, but Bolly is very much in the middle of the Red Bulls, as Mo Leader going over the line there to start their final lap, and expect a massive flurry. And Silverside Boy, we mentioned the top 5 in the championship, Silverside Boy is one of them, or even the top 6 in the championship. Silverside Boy dropping it at turn 19, and did that damage to McLaren's rear wing? I suppose we'll find out in just a few moments time, but thankfully that was their outlap and not their flying lap, otherwise that would have been an absolute disaster for the McLaren.
Yeah, he might have got away with it. Poella just gets across the line. 2 seconds to spare. Junivane does not get another run. The top 2 then are out. Well, they're done with quali now, Junivane and Phenom. So Law can potentially, it's up to him. He's the nearest challenger to take pole position off them. I think it's going to be quite difficult to beat Junivane's 33.3. Nigel Piggle is in 4th and he's slowed down his laps. That is it for him. Snedden in 5th, also on a flyer. Borley coming across the line now with Tiddlewink 9th. Klutschak will finish 12th. But I'll be interested to see what Poella can do on this one flying lap that she's got. Like we've already said, has been in Tier 1 before. So we'll have to wait and see what her sector times are for Sector 2. Who have we got coming around now towards the line? I think Law's coming around now.
Law's dropped it though. He just dropped it going through the horseshoe. David Lawface put another one on the counter for turn 17 as that has claimed another Alpine. Nigel Pedro as well dropping it at the end of sector 1, so he won't improve. So it's now Snedden, and he can only go 4th on a 133.7. Now we'll jump down, I believe, to Poya and see where they can go in the standings. We'll see a bit of movement as well as Law is backed off and is in the pits too after that spin. Nigel Pedro, I'm sure it will follow. We've also got Stiffmeister still on a lap, Shadows on a lap as well, a driver we definitely haven't mentioned in qualifying. Tidjum can only go 13th, and Poya is invalidated and has to go in the pits as well. So that one lap run for Poya didn't work out, but we'll have a look as well and see Bolly head over the line. Where is this going to put them? Still 7th place, and Stiffmeister has backed off. And then we got Nigel heading over the line at a snail's pace, I'm sure. And that is going to be it for qualifying, which sees Junivane picking up from that victory in Suzuka, now takes pole ahead of the US Grand Prix.
Well, he's had such a strong last few races, Genevieve, couple of wins in that. He also raced. Have to remember he's got some practice around here already in Tier One, and it has to be said with the Tier One guys, I think he qualified sixth on the grid with them. So he's been impressed. He's been impressing all week really, and he takes pole in Tier Two now by just under 2 tenths to Phenom. But yeah, it does not look like, Cruiser, we are going to get IFC Pines in for this race. He's literally got to join literally now. Otherwise, he is not going to get in. So we're going to ping him one more invite just in case. But I don't think he's going to be in. And with Phenom starting on the front row, he's going to be loving that. Silverside Boy in third in the championship starts eighth. Like you said, spun before his last flying lap that might have damaged his car a little bit. And Poella leaving it too late and invalidating that one run that she had. Also have to say it's a disappointing qualifying for Shadow, who qualifies outside the top 10.
But regardless, though, it's an absolute open goal for Phenom ahead of the race this evening. Silverside Boy, as mentioned, down in 8th. I think he'll be satisfied with that, as his qualifying pace just really hasn't been all there from what I remember, especially when he competed, I believe, in the Tier 1 race also. He was really struggling to keep up, but did manage to get Q3 in that occasion. But 8th place, I'm sure, won't be too much for the McLaren to moan about, as well as his teammate Snedden up in 4th. But the real spanner in the works here, Law, 3rd place in his debut race. So he could throw up a few surprises here, as we've got a few dark clouds overhead. And typically, being from the UK, whenever there's dark clouds, that usually brings a sign of rain.
That would be very interesting if we were to have rain here. Seeing no rain this week with Tier 3 and Tier 1, so it'd be interesting to see how they cope with it. I know Phenom, I believe, last time out it rained he got a win in Austria, I think it was, in the rain, and I think that's his only win this season, actually. So be interesting to see what he can do. Tiddlewick on his wheel tonight, has to be said, and he said P9 with his wheel not too shabby. I have to admit, that's not too bad, actually. I know when I've been using my wheel, I'm about a good second and a half, 2 seconds off the pace until I've had some good practice. So that's pretty good from the AlphaTauri driver. But yeah, once again, Genevieve on pole position. And if he wins again tonight, he can seriously get himself in proper contention to maybe even nick this championship late on, because he's only, I believe, around about 36 points behind now.
And still no sign of our championship leader, so it's looking like this is going to be a serious open goal for everyone in the top 5 ahead of this race. But as well, that could also bring some added pressure to our drivers, knowing that this is their chance, and my goodness, they have to seize it. But with Junivane on pole, Phenom in second place, they two having the best possible advantage to take the biggest advantage in towards Mexico next week. As so got a bit of a few hellos in our Twitch chat this evening. First off, to the one and only Scotsman, saying, I looked at this a bit earlier in the Twitch chat, saying, listen to that accent, man. What a weird accent. Where's that from? I know fine well who that's against. We've got David Lawface in the chat too. Good evening to yourself. Nigel in the chat also. And a good evening to you. Tiddlewink as well in the Twitch chat, saying what he said in the Discord, I believe. And Silverside Boy saying that he's disappointed in me. I don't imagine what that's for, but I'm sure he'll conjure up an excuse. No excuses tonight, lad. Get that podium. And Shadows as well in the chat as well. Good evening, but it has been a good evening so far for the Williams. Saying half a second up at the triple right and dropped it around the horseshoe. It's easy done. I know fine well. Just waiting now for, and actually as well, and a good evening to MCR in the chat saying, afternoon, it's race time. Not quite, but we're just waiting for that countdown to get underway. And we begin round 19 of 22, if I'm correct. Round 22 in this.
That's it.
In this season 4 championship for FPRL. And as I said, we're still waiting on the countdown, so nothing really more to talk about. So let's have a few drink redemptions redeemed courtesy of yours truly to me and Monkey Boy Kurt, and a toast to a good evening of racing, and thankfully no late drama, but at the same time hopeful for late drama, like Ali Ferrari gave us in Tier 1.
Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, I mean obviously you watched that, didn't you? You were on co-coms for Tier 1 as well. What a move that was from Ali Ferrari. Around the outside it was, wasn't it? I believe of turns 15 or 16 on AMS Drive. That was what we were used to last season. Those two sort of dominating most of the races last season. And it has to be said in Tier 1 that Object Fungus has just walked the championship by absolute massive margin. So full credit to him this season. But yeah, Tier 3's done, Tier 1's done in both championships actually, drivers and constructors. But Tier 2, as we know, both of them still to play for. And the countdown's just finished. Onto the outlap we go. And yeah, that's just confirmed it. No championship leader of IFC Pines. So what an opportunity this is now for Phenom or Silverside Boy. They're both within 25 points to potentially take the lead of the championship after tonight.
And we're seeing as well, just on our driver tracker, that everyone is starting on the medium tyres. So definitely no variety in this field, but at the same time it could be a bit of copycat because those... Pardon that, might just make by accident. Right, pardon that, I do apologise. And we got Pines in the chat this evening saying bye bye championship lead. So it seems as though Pines is through in the towel. But we're just following there with Junuvain heading the field just through sector 1. But everyone's starting on the medium tyres. Could that actually be a sign of rain later in this race? Or is everyone just too afraid to change up the strategy? Just we've seen as well, people starting on the hard compound tyres did have the better advantage to the end of the races in Tier 1 and Tier 2, I believe. No, not quite Tier 2, sorry. Tier 3 also. But you do run the risk of potentially a safety car completely throwing your strategy, which did happen, I believe, to the likes of Brookingman and Object Fungus in Tier 1. So I think everyone playing it a little bit safe, but also playing it a little bit tentative too, starting on the same tyre.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're going to really, even if we get a safety car, it'll be interesting to see which people decide to come in, depending on what time or if it comes out. Because, like you say, everyone's on the same strategy. So, will some of them pit in for hards? Will some try and long it out? It's going to be interesting. But yeah, we come now to the end of the outlap, and EG46 Squid, the man with a quali ban tonight. I wonder what he can do. From last place on the grid. He did obviously get his first podium last week, which was courtesy of Shadow's 5-second penalty, it has to be said, but will be interesting to see what he can do coming through the field. Poella as well does have the pace to come through the field as well, and also Law is starting in third. Can he challenge these front two of Phenom and Junuvain? Everyone's now starting to line up ready for the race, and More Leader has disqualified himself.
There's always one, plus another one, as Nigel Pedro follows him, and Stwed right at the back of the field also has disqualified from the formation lap, but we've got 5 lights here at the Circuit of the Americas. The championship leader isn't here, but who's going to take the biggest advantage? It's lights out, and away we go, and looks like Junuvain's got a really strong start, keeping that lead over Phenom and Law. And Nigel, what a start from the Aston Martin, right through the middle of the pair of Law and Phenom, but does run Law a little bit wide there. Law losing out multiple places at the start. We got a yellow flag in sector 1. I think there's been a problem. It's Tiddlewink who said he's running on the wheel tonight, and he's just lost the wheel off of that Alpha Tauri. I think Nigel Pedro might have been caught up in that as well, as we got a virtual safety car at the start of this race. But Junuvain doing what we had to do, heading the field.
Yeah, well, almost like Nigel outbroke himself into turn 1. He went very wide, almost did run Law out of road, has come back onto the track, and then I think him and Snedden, the old Yeah, the old rivals from last year, Tier 3. We knew they had some comings together last season. I think they come together again, and that's what's sent Nigel round. Um, Tiddlewink asking for a reset. We will not reset for one driver going out, I'm afraid, mate. But yeah, just unlucky for him out on the first corner as we get back underway racing. Though Ginny Vane keeps the lead, Phenom keeps second, but Stiffmeisters jumps up into third position, and Silverside Boy up into fourth as well.
Silverside Boy doing what he had to do off at the start, and we'll have a look actually at the positions gain graphic. See Stiffmeister up 3, Silverside Boy up 4, Molly they're up 5 places, and Poya as well up 7 places in that Red Bull. A very strong start for Poya. And more leader 2 up 5 as I've mentioned, but Junivane 1.1 clear as, oh, we got a bit of a snake there, and that being Bolly getting massive oversteer and diving into the pits. He could actually have had damage from that first lap incident, but Junivane still 1 second clear ahead of Phenom and Stiffmeister in third. We've got Silverside Boy in fourth, and then more leader right behind that McLaren, and we've got Law, Poya, Snedden, Shadows, and Klutz Jack 2 making places up at the start in 10th with Tijim, Swid, and then we've got Nigel Piddle and Bolly making that pit stop, and it's looking like Bolly might have actually went into a set of hard compound tyres if we find out real quick, and notice another set of mediums. So that, I think, does tell us quite a bit about what the weather is for later on.
Yeah, could potentially start to get wet again. I would have thought, like you said, Cruz, he might have longed out a set of hards now, but decides to go on another set of mediums, just drop back to the back of the field. But Poela, yeah, the best start out of everyone, 7 places up she's gone. And a little shout out to More Leader, I'll give him that as well, up into 5th. He's had a good start as well. Looks like Ginny Vane is slowly, once again, getting putting that gap to Phenom. He's in fantastic form, mate, as Ginny Vane. We keep saying it every week that at the start of the season he had this kind of form in qualifying and just couldn't deliver in the race, but he's looks like he's mastered the art now, and he is delivering a lot more in recent weeks in Tier 2 as he starts lap 3 with a 1.7 lead and another fastest lap as TJ picks up the first penalty of the race on lap 3. And that's another thing, Cruiser. This race could potentially be won or lost, or a lot of points won or lost on the amount of penalties that we get from the drivers, as we know that little quick S's section in Sector 1 can definitely make you go wide and get you some warnings.
Very fair point as well regarding the penalty situation. We have seen that differ the result of multiple races in Tier 3 and Tier 1, just following Law now down in 6th place, getting forced off and forced wide by Nigel Piddle at the start, but has not lost too much ground and is still hanging on to the back of Mo Leader as DRS has been enabled in lap 3 here at the circuit of the Americas. Junivane 2 seconds clear of Phenom in second, but Stiffmeister is within DRS range of the Alfa Romeo. Is Silverside Boy within range? He's not within range. He's just missed it by less than a tenth of a second. So that McLaren is going to struggle a little bit, but looks as though they are running a bit lower downforce, as they haven't lost too much ground there to Stiffmeister. Down that back straight, Mo Leader in 5th, then we got Law, Poya too, running a very steady race so far in 7th place, making up places at the start, but now a Snedden all over the back of that Red Bull. Jump on board real quick with Poya. You can see that Snedden and Shadows heckling that Red Bull going through the horseshoe, but Poya, she's just keeping within range, as I think Law's made a bit of a mistake as well, going up towards the horseshoe. I think might have lost the rear of that Alpine, and is now out of DRS range of Mo Leader, has now found themselves just out of DRS range actually of Poya, but we'll jump up with Snedden here because they've got DRS, they've got the ERS, and they're going to try and make this move into turn 1. Poya actually does have just enough of a gap to Law to keep that DRS and help defend against that McLaren of Snedden, but Poya, she's definitely feeling the pressure against Snedden in these early stages, but she's holding strong against that McLaren, as we'll have a look here and see Stiffmeister 1.3 now behind Phenom. They might have made a mistake too. Now have Silverside Boy all over the back of them. Both McLarens looking to make gains and places here up at the start, and Silverside Boy knows he's got to make these moves stick to have a chance at eating away at Pines' leader. He's got a yellow flag in Sector 1. I think that's Klutz Jack who's had a spin, and indeed Klutz Jack has made a spin around turn 8, but we'll stick with Silverside Boy down this back straight. DRS for the McLaren, gaining on that Williams. To the left hand side goes the McLaren against the Williams. Who's going to be the late breaker? It's going to be Stiffmeister, who breaks a little bit later. Silverside Boy hangs it around the inside. Is still not completed though, up towards turn 13. But Silverside Boy just enough ahead, and he is now fully ahead of that Williams. So Silverside Boy making places, making gains, and he's up into the podium places.
Yeah, exactly what Silverside Boy wanted to do. He wants to get as many points on the board as he can with Pines not racing. And Juni Vane has lost it!
The man on form, and he's dropped it out the horseshoe. He's actually only lost a few places there, down in 4th, and I think Squid's made a mistake as well at the horseshoe. This horseshoe is eating all of our drivers and spitting them out, and it's spitting them sideways. First Junivane and now Squid, and this is now definitely an open goal for Phenom, who inherits the lead of the race, and Silverside Boy now up in 2nd place, and if he can break that DRS to Stiffmeister, he's got all the advantages in the world to potentially hold on. He's got a free sitting time penalty. As I say that, he's took all the advantages and completely threw them away. But it's still 23 laps left to go here at the Circuit of the Americas, but we've had our first bit of early action and drama, and it's went away of Junivane, and he's dropped it again at the exit of Sector 1!
Oh, Junivane, really, he's been such good form, and maybe those tyres were still a bit too hot from the previous spin, but he's now down to 10th, and yeah, that's not going to do him any well in this championship. He was on course in these early stages to really be up there fighting come these last 3 races, but I don't know how much is going to be now. There's still a long way to go, but he drops now down to 10th with just 1 point to his name if he does finish there. Phenom and Silverside Boy, though, in the main positions. What IFC Pines does not want to be seeing, those two, 1st and 2nd. Yes, Silverside Boy does have the penalty, but there's still a long way to go. Stiffmeister in 3rd, just about hanging on to Silverside Boy's DRS, and Law now has made it past More Leader, who I think has got a very, very drained battery, only 8%, and potentially we could start to see him drop down now with only a little bit to defend with, as Poela is getting DRS now as Cleat is off at the horseshoe once again, and yeah, so many drivers getting caught out by this corner.
Snedden making a dive bomb on Poya, gets past but tires More Leader in the process, and Poya having to defend against the McLaren, left the door open for Snedden, who just braked just a little bit too late and has tied More Leader down to 8th place. And Snedden might have front wing damage actually from that collision. Poya now up in 6th, and Shadows as well, a driver we've almost not even talked about this whole evening actually, running his own race, now up into 5th as well. While we were going through that incident with Junivane too, Law getting past More Leader down this back straight up to 4th, and now Stiffmeister is within range of Silverside Boy, but the gap up at the front, 1.6 seconds between Phenom and Silverside Boy, which has remained relatively stable since Junivane has made that, I would say, almost fatal error towards the race. But down in 10th place now is the Red Bull of Junivane, and we saw too Poya when I was riding on board with Snedden there, really struggling around the horseshoe, almost lost it a few times, but brilliant driver control from the Red Bull, just keeping it under control, and has now got himself within DRS range of the Williams in this fight for P5.
Yeah, I think Silverside Boy here is sort of Stiffmeister just out in his his DRS zone still. But he's been helped out by his setup. He normally tends to run lower wings, and I think the straight line speed is helping him. He's only got 6% battery. Stiffmeister's 31, and Stiffmeister will have DRS, so I think the setup is helping him a bit. But with that low battery, it would be expected if we saw Stiffmeister get past in a minute. Phenom, look out in front, still got 80% on that battery, so he looks in fine form at the moment after 7 laps of his 28-lap race. Law actually now also catching up to the back of Stiffmeister. 1.2 seconds is the gap, so he's almost within range as well. And Poela just 6/10 behind Shadow. Whether or not she has the straight line speed to get him down on the back straight, we'll have to wait and see. But More Leader's been overtaken by TJ, and potentially we could see another fight back for 8th position down the back straight as well.
Let's say a very nice move there from Tidgham as well. Up at turn 1, late braking, and Molida was more aware to it. And I think Squid's made a mistake as well, going through the S section, and he has made a mistake. It's just been a race of glaring errors for everyone in the top 5, or the top 6 it seems, and Squid, after that podium in Suzuka, it's just not working out for the Mercedes, and with his teammate too, not racing. So they take a massive blow in the Constructors' Championship. As things stand, as Nigel Piddle gets a 3-second penalty, I believe going through the S's also, but we've seen too, Nigel is practically pitted just a few laps ago and is now on the hard compound tyres. So it looks like Nigel's going to try and go a bit longer in this race, and we've seen too, Law now right behind Stiffmeister in this fight, which is going to be for second place, and Phenom sending that gap up at the front now, 1.8 seconds over himself and Silverside Boy. And as you mentioned, Phenom almost got a full battery, as opposed to Silverside Boy having near enough no battery to defend and attack, as Snedden is in the pits for the McLaren team. And we're seeing, is he making that front wing change? He isn't changing his front wing, so he might have got away with that damage, or that incident he had with more leader. But this race has really been thrown up on its head in just a few laps, and only a few, I would say a few moments, but they have been rather sizable errors from a few of our drivers, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, Snedden also there is pitting very early. If he was planning on getting a wing change, they just didn't do it. But on lap 8, I mean, I think they normally say coming around lap 12 on those mediums. Maybe he's going for a big undercut on the drivers around him at the time, which were Poella, Shadow and Law, as Law now is getting really close to the back of Stiffmeister, and Stiffmeister also still on Silverside Boys gearbox, as Borley at the back there in 14th, not having a great race today, is also spun it in sector 1 once again, so he drops even further down the order. But Phenom is keeping that lead nice and healthy, nice and steady, 1.8 seconds, and doesn't have a penalty, unlike Silverside Boys, who's looking very good at the moment for the American driver at his home race as well, to potentially, still 20 laps to go, but potentially take the lead of this championship with only 3 races after this remaining.
And from one McLaren to another, Snedden getting their first time penalty of the race on those cold, hard compound tyres, finds himself in 10th with Squid all over the back of them too. And Silverside Boy, as mentioned, that gap is slowly increasing, but it's not increasing dramatically. It's now 2 seconds between himself and Phenom. Stiffmeister in 3rd, and Law very much hanging on to the back of that Williams in this fight for second place. We've got Shadows in P5, still with Poya right behind them. Holding strong is the other Williams against the Red Bull. Then we've got Tidgham, Molida, Junivane, and Snedden is in the pits again, and still no front wing change.
Oh, and Borley,
I think,
looks like he's crashed it coming into the pit lane, and that's caused a safety car.
well, that's a bit of a red-faced moment for Borley, but this is now completely changed the complexion of this race. So you'd imagine everyone at this moment on the medium tyres surely is going to go into the pit lane for a set of hard compound tyres. But as well, I'm actually having a look here. We've seen, actually, I was going to mention as well that the fuel lights had came on for all of our drivers, but I was only on broadcast with Phenom, seeing the fuel light lit up, so I was wondering if he was running that little bit less fuel for this race, but it's applied to everyone under safety car, so that's one drama averted, and I'm pretty sure that everyone is going to be in the pits, as we'll see the chain reaction. And actually, Phenom thought about it, but he's now in the pits now, as well as Silverside Boy, Stiffmeister. Yeah, everyone, it's a no-brainer. A free pit stop onto a set of hard compound tyres, as Law's backing up quite a bit there going into the pit lane. I wonder if he did stall it a little, going into the just going through the pit limiter line. We'll see as well. Silverside Boy had to get held a little bit because of Law. Is that going to allow Stiffmeister? It has allowed him to get past. So Law making that mistake at the pit lane limiter has allowed Stiffmeister to jump Silverside Boy in the pit stops.
Yeah, that's vital, to be honest, for Stiffmeister. I mean, the penalty still stood for Silverside Boy, but he hasn't got to worry about getting past him now in the DRS. Also Shadow getting held, and Stiffmeister, they're both teammates. You have to wait a little bit longer, and Poeta has jumped Shadow once again in that pit stop. So that's another change of position there. But like you said, like we can see, everyone obviously starting on the same tyre. Every single person has come in for those hard tyres. So really, apart from those little couple of changes in the box, there's not really a lot of change to the order. And they can all go to the end now, providing there's no more safety cars. If there is another safety car, will it make the drivers come in once again, maybe for another set of mediums, or even if it comes near the end, a set of softs? Is very difficult though to keep the soft tyres under a good temperature around here with so many long, fast corners. But yeah, Silverside Boy saying that he'd lagged through him. Car stopped to let him through. So looks like it was very close between those two, but the game has allowed Stiffmeister to get in front. Maybe a bit of Codemasters classic there, Cruiser.
We all know it all too well, and this actually, I don't think this is actually the first instance that this has happened to Silverside Boy. They mentioned in Suzuka that they were held in their pit box as well. I believe on both occasions they made their pit stop. So it's just not went well in general for Silverside Boy and his pit stops these last couple of races. But I'm sure with, I believe that'll be 16 laps left before the end of this race. He's got a long way to go to eventually get back past Stiffmeister, but with Stiffmeister holding on to that McLaren, it could be easier said than done. But Phenom still heading the field, and the order is as you were before the pit stops. As you should say, tell a lie, it isn't really, because Stiffmeister making up the place on Silverside Boy and Poya getting past Shadows, as Monkey Boy Kurt has mentioned also. But Phenom still heading the field, Stiffmeister in second, Silverside Boy in third, Law, very strong race so far, up in fourth. Then we got Poya, started 14th, now up into the top 5. Then we've got Shadows, Tijim 2, quiet race for the Aston Martin, but it's up in 7th. Then we've got Molider, after getting tagged by Snedden, now finds himself in 8th. Junivane wanting to make amends after the earlier mistakes in 9th, and Nigel Piddle in 10th. And we got Squid, Klutschak and Snedden, I would say in the third time of asking, finally changing that front wing. So it seems like the transmission has came through for Snedden saying change the front wing, and finally the game has allowed him to change his front wing. But still, the damage has been done for Snedden, but there is still plenty of time to repair it. As we'll just wait, this will be the final lap under safety car. So Phenom, now comes the challenge of leading the field after the safety car restart.
Yeah, apparently we've got some crackling going on. I'm just trying to, if I can clear it with the Xbox button. Don't know if we're going to have any issues here. I might have to get off the co-coms if this is the case. If you press the Xbox button, Cruiser, it might sort some things out. Just going to put myself on mute and see if I can hear it for myself. Just bear with me, mate. I'll let you take the drivers away for the restart.
I think that actually could be my end. Oh, that's not great. Bear with us for a second, ladies and gentlemen. Right, hopefully that seems to have sorted it out. Let us know in the Twitch chat if that has rectified the issue. But Phenom still leading the field. He's got the restart done just the way he wanted to, but 7/10 of a second between himself and Stiffmeister. He's not let that Williams out of his sight. Now you've got Silverside Boy still in third, Law in fourth, Poya right behind that Alpine in fifth. Will stick on board, lift the Red Bull through the S's section, nearly pushing that Alpine through the complex. Then we've got Shadows, Tidjum, Molida, Junivane and Nigel. No one making places up at this restart. But Poya looking to making up this place now, up into the top 4. But DRS will not be activated for the next few laps under safety car restart. What's the word? Protocol. Whatever. I'm just babbling right now. But Stiffmeister looking to get this move done on Phenom. We have known Phenom that he can preserve his battery if he needs to use it, and I'm pretty sure he is going to be using it right now to defend against the Williams. Weaving a little bit down the back straight to break the slipstream, and it's done just enough to keep him ahead for the time being. And Silversay Boy still holding station in third, but Law going a bit deep there in towards turn 12. That's gave the McLaren a bit of breathing room, as Snedden and Klutschak actually fighting at the back will jump down towards this battle for 12th place. And Klutschak just keeping ahead of the McLaren of Snedden, but Snedden, I'm sure, he's thought about that move in towards turn 16, but it's just too far back to make that move stick now through the horseshoe. Following Klutschak and Snedden as well, these two fighting over 12th as mentioned, and Phenom looking to defend his lead up at the top. Still 7/10 of a second clear to Stiffmeister in second. Silversay Boy still in third, but all three of these drivers within 1 second of each other. Then we've got Law, who's just creeped into that 1 second window of Silversay Boy. Then we've got Poya, Shadows and Tidjum as well in 7th place, having to defend against Morley there. Then we've got Junivane a second back. As I say, a second back, he's borderline 1 second to Morley there, heckling that Aston Martin right in front of him in his fight for 7th place. He's keeping it very close through the SS section as Poya. It's a 3-second penalty in 5th, so that's going to give Law a bit of breathing room, knowing that the two drivers both in front and behind him have time penalties towards the end of the race.
Yeah, if someone can just put in the chat, it's all good in terms of sound on the co-coms in as well. Hopefully that's all gone. But going up then the back straight, here comes Stiffmeister, who's using all that battery. He's going to have a go now at Phenom. Coming down now into the left-hander, down the hill, and Phenom's using the battery as well to defend. Is there going to be a late break from Stiffmeister? No, there isn't. And this time, Phenom stays ahead once again. But I think when the DRS comes, it could be Stiffmeister in the lead. And not to curse anything, Cruiser, but Stiffmeister still yet to have a race win this season. So will we potentially see that tonight?
Got a driver who has had his victory around Austria, as mentioned, that being Phenom, and Stiffmeister as well, looking for that first victory. So we've got a driver who knows what it's like to win a race versus the driver who wants to win that race. But Stiffmeister giving it a damn good shot right now. Half a second, still 7/10 actually behind Phenom, so that gap has remained stable. And Silversay Boy, we're seeing that he's actually very strong in that final sector, making up quite a bit of time on the drivers in front. And then we're going to see as well a top 6 all within 1 second of each other, so we're going to see a 6-car DRS train. Tidjum's a bit too far back in 7th, but he's got his mirrors full of the Ferrari of Molida, who's always he seems to struggle with his ERS charge, and that will help Tidjum in his defence. But Junivane is the one I think both of these drivers are worrying about at the same time, down in 9th place, and that Red Bull seems very, very angry from that earlier mistake and looking to charge through the field, but will jump up to the front and see if there's any changes in the top 4, as I think Poya's just dropped out of DRS range from Law. So currently it's Phenom, Stiffmeister, Silversay Boy and Law in 4th. Phenom waving to try and break that slipstream, but we're going to see a move here. No, we're not. But we're actually going to see a move further back here between Shadows and Phenom. Shadows getting the DRS on the Red Bull, and Shadows finally getting back past Poya. It's up into 5th place. As Law's made a mistake going through turn 14. Just seeing that going on the broadcast camera with Shadows. Law making the mistake, getting a bit of oversteer, and has now dropped down to 6th place. And that's now going to be a bit of a sigh of relief for the top 3. Now they now have each other all to themselves.
Yeah, Law's going well. He went well in quali, he's gone well in the race. Little mistake there, still keeps him sick. He's got 2 people ahead of him with penalties, so as long as he can stay close to them 2, he should still make up a couple of places. Going back onto the last lap, Stiffmeister was 8/10 off Phenom going into the DRS zone, and he's a lot closer now. So as long as he can stay with him through Sector 1, I think we are going to see an overtake here from the Williams driver for the lead. Phenom needs to... I mean, it's difficult for Phenom. He'll want to get as far as he can ahead points-wise of Pines and Silverside Boy, but at the same time, he also knows that even if he finishes 2nd, or 3rd for that matter, he will still take the lead of the championship today. As we now come up towards the back straight, 5 tenths is the gap, and he's definitely now close enough, Stiffmeister, to go for a move. Klutschak gets a penalty back down in last place, 13th, but here we go then. Battery is on, Stiffmeister, DRS is on, battery's on from Phenom as well, and it looks like the battery might be just enough. No, he's going down the end, inside, sorry, outside Stiffmeister, trying to make it work, but goes far too wide and almost loses the back end on exit, sorry. And once again, Phenom manages to position his car in the right way and stays ahead. The Silverside boys now trying to take a look up the inside now towards the outside of Stiffmeister as well. It's getting very, very tasty here, and we're just over halfway now through the race.
So the first half completed, then we got another half, I'm sure, full of drama also, but Phenom having to put up his first major defence and his first major scare against Stiffmeister. He's weathered that storm very well, as Swed gets a time penalty down in 11th place, and we got to move further back. Nigel Piddle actually getting past Junuvane. So Junuvane really struggling here, but we'll actually jump back to this battle here for 9th place. Both of these drivers having DRS. And Nigel, is he going to send it into turn 1? He's going to send it into turn 1, but he's going to have the tighter line around the hairpin. Junuvane getting the better exit around turn 1 now towards turn 2. They banged wheels a little bit, but Junuvane just keeps ahead of that Aston Martin. And we've seen as well Snedden and Swed getting involved in this fight as well, in this fight for 9th place. We've got battles all over the track. We've got Tidgem and Mo Leader 2 still as you were for 7th place. Poya hanging on to the back of Shadows as well. But one thing as well for the drivers up in front, the more they start to fight, the more that Shadows could actually gain up on them, and soon really potentially change up this order up at the front. But Stiffmeister again with the DRS, but I think they're going to hang back on this occasion just because he burnt up all their battery trying to get past on the prior lap. Bit of a lock up there for the Williams too, going through turn 12, and Phenom weathering these storms very nicely and is still holding on to that lead, but it's still 12.5 laps left to go, and as we've seen before, all it takes is one corner to change a race.
Yeah, and they're just going through one of those corners that can potentially change the race of turn 17. They're going to have to be very careful on the tyres when it comes towards the end of the race if there's no more safety cars, because worn tyres around there can be very, very dodgy, but for now I think they'll be fine, provided they don't overdo that throttle at the moment. But Phenom is doing well to just keep ahead at the moment. His battery has gone a bit further down from the start of the race, but he's still got half of the tank in there, which is more than what Stiffmeister has got. But really, Stiffmeister's probably hoping for a little mistake from Phenom in this first sector here of this S's, where he can then try and get right on the back of him, come down the back straight. We go further back a little bit more, and Shadow's been got Poello over the back of him, then Law just behind that, and there's a little bit of a gap there. Tidgem's on 2.5 behind Law in 7th place. And once again, we've got that other battle there between 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th. And even Klutschak now into that DRS zone. Go back to the front. Here goes Stiffmeister once again. Is he going to have a go this time? It doesn't look like he's applying any battery, and once again, Phenom will survive another lap unless he wants a late dive to Stiffmeister and he thinks better of it once again.
As one lap goes by, another opportunity goes by for Stiffmeister. He just isn't close enough when he needs to be, as Junuvane getting past Mo Leader 2 down that back straight. Now that's the Red Bull up into 8th place on their comeback drive. Next up for them is going to be Tidgem, who's still running that very strong race for themselves in 7th. And as well, that gap between Silverside Boy and Shadows, importantly, 2.1 seconds. But with Silverside Boy having that 3-second penalty, if Shadows can keep within that 3-second window, he'll find himself on the podium by the end of this race. So it's all the more important now for Silverside Boy to build that gap. And we've got a yellow flag up at the back, and I think it's Nigel Piddle who's had a spin going through turn 19. They're going to dive into the pit lane, and I wonder, is that for a change of tyres, or is that to throw away the race gloves? I think it's just going to be a tyre change for the Aston Martin down in 13th place, and they'll now be begging for a safety car to try and salvage their race, although it's looking like that race is seemingly a bit of a lost cause for at least one of the Aston Martins, with just 11 laps left to go at the Circuit of the Americas. Phenom and Stiffmeister still 6/10 of a second, and Silverside Boy getting a bit detached from this lead group, and he won't have DRS, which is going to allow these two up at the front just pull away that ever more from the McLaren.
Yeah, here goes Stiffmeister now. He's on the DRS. No, he's not. He's turned it off. And he's turned off the DRS, and it's a safety car.
Safety car.
And I don't know what that's for.
I believe that. I think that's for Klutschak. He lost his front wing going through turn 12.
Oh, I think that's a bit of a soft safety car, has to be said. But nevertheless, it's come out. And now, what do people do? Do they stay out? Do they go on if they've got another set of mediums on there? Because you know you can change what tyres you have now before the start of the race. What is going to happen? Nigel Pickle, saying that he's made a pit stop. Unfortunately, he's a bit far back though, so I don't think he's really going to gain anything from it. But will Phenom come in? Will he stay out? Phenom's coming in.
He's coming in. Oh, he's trolled us. But Silverside Boy is no lie in this. He's going to make the pit stop. So Phenom pulling a few mind games there is pointed as a penalty for hitting. I think they might have hit Shadow somewhere, but I'm not sure where. But Phenom and Stiffmeister have stayed out. Law now up into third, Junivane now up into fourth, and Silverside Boy is going to have a set of medium compound tyres to go to the end. Molider and Stwiddle stay out. So Silverside Boy is going to be out in 7th place here, but on a fresh set of tyres to go to the end of this race. But now we've got quite a bit of traffic between themselves and Stiffmeister and Phenom up in first and second, and Klutschak has retired from the race. Oh dear, that front wing damage just a bit too much for the Haas, and they are out of the US Grand Prix. That's going to put Nigel up into 12th. And seeing in the chat too, Nigel saying, Satan, thank you very much. To myself saying about a safety car. Well, no sooner did I say it, it actually happened for the Aston Martin. So a bit of luck and fortune for Nigel Peddle, who can now try and salvage their race this evening, which just hasn't went to plan after the first lap. And Snedden as well down in 11th place. They've really been struggling these last few races. They just haven't seemed to hasn't seemed to come together for Snedden. I don't know what it is, but they were looking very good at the midpoint of the campaign, but it's just nothing seemed to gel for at least one of the McLarens.
Yeah, and I don't know if you just saw that cruiser, but Phenom has left the session, and I've just pinged him an invite, but it looks like this safety car could be in this lap. We've only got Snedden and Pickle to catch the train up, and he's currently still not joined back. He's got 3 invites now, but this could potentially ruin it for the Alfa Romeo if he can't get back in the session quick enough. Is the safety car going to be in? That is the question. We've gone past sector 2. It might stay out for one more lap. I think at this rate it probably is. Yeah, it can't really come in this late. So he's got some more time to get back in the session, has Phenom, but at the moment he's still not in. So this is very, very interesting. And Shadow said in the chat that he made a late call to come into the pits, and he just got hit by Poella, which is I don't know if that's caused any damage maybe to his rear wing potentially. I'm not sure, but he sits in 10th at the moment. But 9th, 8th, 7th and 6th all have penalties. Silverside Boy, the first of those drivers on the fresh mediums, what can he do? Can he make his way up the field in these last 8 laps? Still, though, with Phenom, and he's on the game. It says he's on the game, so he's just got to get in the session now before the end of the lap and get back and control the car.
Oh dear, of course Codemasters has a few tricks up their sleeve, and it seems as though Pimes, if he's still here in the broadcast, is breathing a very heavy sigh of relief, knowing that if Phenom can't get back in the session, this has really helped him out in this championship. But all Phenom would have had to do is just stay on the podium, and they would take the lead going in towards Mexico. But Stiffmeister, this is definitely their best chance to take the lead, and Law as well up in 3rd. We've got Junivane on that recovery for 4th, Molider 5th, Stwid, a quiet race I would say for the Mercedes in 6th. But I think most of most eyes will be on Silverside Boy and how quickly he can get through the traffic in front of him to get back up to the lead group, as I think that'll be the safety car in at the end of this lap. So we will have 8 laps, and indeed Race Control has confirmed that 8 laps left to go here at the Circuit of the Americas, and 8 laps to see who can take that victory, and if we will have a new championship leader going in towards Mexico in I would say just a week's time, but not even in just a few days' time, as we are racing on a Sunday, as mentioned at the start of the broadcast. Thank you, England. Your football put us to sleep, and we couldn't race on the Friday. But regardless, it's coming home. I know that's probably angered a few of you watching the broadcast, but still. Anyway, Phenom. It looks like they've got back in the session at least. So that's
He's back in now. He is back in.
So a bit of a sigh of relief for the American, and it's going to be a very heavy right foot for the Phenom, and he stamps on the brake pedal, and away we go for 8 more laps at the Circuit of the Americas. Stiffmeister a bit caught out there at the restart on those cold tyres. Then we've got Law in third, and Squid already having to defend against Silverside Boy on the fresher mediums, late braking in towards turn 1. Around the outside goes Silverside Boy, and that's one of the drivers already dispersed. That being Squid. Next up for him is Mo Leader, making gains as well as Poya, Shadows and Snedden, and Tidgem's out of the race! Oh, it's Tidgem.
Oh no, is it going to maybe cause another safety car potentially? Don't know if it will this early on after one that's just ended, but I don't know if he's been touched or if he's just lost the maybe cold tyres. He's lost the front end going into that the right-hander, but unfortunately for TJ, just can't score any points lately, and it's going to be another race where he scores no points.
Disaster for the Aston Martin team. First with Nigel getting to the back of the field under a safety car, and now Tidgem out of the race, and Poya too making places up ahead of Squid, and Shadows looking to get places up on the Mercedes too, but Snedden is saying, nah, I want to get past you in towards turn 12, and Shadows is aware to it, holds the inside line, but now Snedden's now the inside line in towards turn 13. I think he might have tapped Shadows there twice. Actually, he puts him back in the right direction, but Snedden muscling his way past the Williams there. It's not been the cleanest race from Snedden here, but they're making the move regardless. Now Nigel sending it to the inside for turn 16, and Shadows just defending ahead of the Aston Martin, going through turn 17. They're still holding it wheel to wheel here, but Nigel backing off of that particular move, and Phenom now having a 1 second lead over Stiffmeister as Shadows gets a time penalty too. And all of these drivers here have got 3 second time penalties at least on the medium compound tyres.
Yeah, all the medium runners that are probably going to be quicker come the end part of the race have all got penalties, so for the harder runners it's probably going to even itself out in terms of the final result if the hard runners can keep, as I say that, Law, the first one out of the hard runners, gets a penalty there as Nigel Piggle and Shadow fighting at the back for this 10th place, and in the end Nigel Piggle is the driver that is through. Phenom still 8 attempts ahead of Stiffmeister, nothing there. I don't think there's any DRS at the moment. I think we've got to wait one more lap, but Silverside Boy just can't seem to get past More Leader. And I'm wondering, are those mediums at this late in the race with light fuel actually overheating a bit?
I suppose only time will tell, but Poya now is right behind Silverside Boy. These two can't get into a fight too much, but Poya's going to look for the inside in towards turn 12, make the move on the McLaren to the inside. Goes Poya behind Silverside Boy at the exit, just about keeps it facing forward, and Silverside Boy now forcing Poya wider in turn 13, but Poya having that run through the stadium section. Down the inside goes Poya, and still these two don't know when to give in, but in the end Silverside Boy has to give way to the Red Bull, and Poya now up into 6th place, and the Silverside Boy does restart not going to plan for the McLaren, and has now got Poya right in front of them, and Silverside Boy and Poya consecutively getting 3 second time penalties.
Well, I think that's it now for Silverside Boy and Poya as well. But Silverside Boy more because he's up there in the championship. That's really affected his chances now. And it has to be said, it's definitely now at the moment going to be out of one of these top 5. Most likely going to be Phenom as it stands, as he's now just broken outside of that second barrier. Oh, now Stiffmaster just got back into it. As Junu Vane now picks up a penalty as well. Everyone now picking up penalties. The only three not to have a penalty at the moment is Phenom, Stiffmaster, and Moorleader, who at the moment will get on the podium if he stays where he is with no penalties.
Just over 5 laps left to go, and Moorleader is within 3 seconds here of Law in third. That gap 1.5, and Stwid's been tapped round now. I don't know if he'd oversteer at the exit of turn 12, but they've been spun round, and that's now I think Stwid firmly not getting any points in this race, and now Poya getting past Moorleader as well. With the aid of DRS, Moorleader to the inside against the Red Bull, just gives way though at the exit. Now Silverside Boy looking to get the move done as well, in towards turn 13, diving to the inside of the Ferrari on those fresher tyres, and now looking for a switchback through turn 16. What a move this is for the McLaren, and what a move it is for the McLaren. Moorleader forced a bit wide there, but is there a fight back against Silverside Boy? Divs away. Oh, he's been tapped round!
Yeah, that was very difficult to call, but I think should have Moorleader have given it up. Should Silverside Boy given him a bit more room? I think that's going to be one definitely for the stewards to decide. Yeah, I've definitely cursed Moorleader there, haven't I?
It does seem like that, but I think a bit of ambition ahead of adhesion there for Moorleader. The move was done going in towards the horseshoe, but they just didn't know when to quit. But I think in the end their car gave up on them and has now put them right down in 11th place. But they are still in for points here if they can keep within Stwid, or a 6-second gap to Nigel Piddle. But the gap between Stwid and Shadows alone is 8 seconds. So they two having a really bad lap 23 with just 5 laps left here. But still going to look here and see where Poya and Silverside Boy can end up. These two on 6 seconds of time penalties, everyone else on 3 seconds, and still no DRS for Silverside Boy, so this is really going to hurt them down this back straight. We'll jump up now to Junu Vane in what could be the fight for the podium between himself and Law. Go through turn 13 now. Junu Vane making the earlier mistake and actually had this race firmly under control, it would seem, but did make that mistake, did spin going through the first sector and drop them down to the back of the field. But Junu Vane on a really strong recovery drive, looking to finish this race the way he started it in qualifying, as I think Stwids went round again at the exit of turn 12. He has further compounding misery for the Mercedes team, and that's going to be no points for them at the Circuit of the Americas with just 4 laps left. Phenom and Stiffmeister at gap 7/10 of a second. Then we've got we've got a 6-car DRS train here, but Silverside Boy, although he was within a second of Poya, still isn't getting a DRS.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's that battery of his. He's not very good, Gary, at conserving the battery. Already down to 5%. Maybe he's just trying his hardest to get as close as he can, but it's going to affect him in the latter laps as he goes wide again there and again. I don't know if that one was a couple of warnings in one go. Squid does retire in the pit, so just the top 10 now. So these 10 will score points for definite. I think really everyone else has got penalties. It's going to come down to, can Stiffmeister take a move on Phenom? And he's got 3 laps to do it. He just can't get close enough. He's been, 5 attempts, 6 attempts the whole race, and Phenom, fair credit to him, has just kept him behind, used the battery when he needs to, defended when he's needed to, and it's actually Law is now actually getting into a train here with Junu Vane and Poella, and Silverside Boy has now seemed to catch up. There's a 6-car DRS train going into the last 3 laps of the race cruiser.
Ladies and gentlemen, stay on the edge of your seat. Just 3 laps left to go. Anything can happen. And that is a very poor excuse to hype up this race. But anyway, we'll go with it. Phenom, 3 laps left to go. 8/10 of a second clear of Stiffmeister. And then we've got Law in third, really starting to pressure that Williams into trying to make a mistake. But Law carrying that time penalty, whereas the top 2 in front don't. We've got Junu Vane, Poya, Silverside Boy still holding stations in 6th place, but these two having 6 seconds of time penalties, and Silverside Boy getting a really good exit there out of turn 1. But again, just that battery, they just don't have enough when they need it the most, and that is really put pay to them. And Junu Vane's made a mistake actually, going through the S's section, Poya getting past the Red Bull, and Silverside Boy, he's actually got stuck behind Junuvane there. I wonder if that was Team James from the Red Bull trying to let Poya through, because Junuvane knows that they have 3 seconds over their teammate in terms of penalties.
Yeah, maybe he knows he's going to go back up in front. He's maybe has got a bit more pace in this last stage with these fresh tyres. He might be right there, Cruiser. But here we go again, Stiffmeister and Law now are getting in on the act. And it's going to get to the point soon where Stiffmeister, if he gets within a tenth or 2 attempts, he's just going to have to send it if he wants this race win bad enough. As Snedden then gets another penalty. Everyone's starting to get penalties apart from this front two. They've got about 3.5 laps, 2.5 laps left to try and stay penalty free. Phenom has got all the pressure here. He knows that he needs this win. He knows he can finish second or third as well and still take the lead of the championship, but he'll want to win it in style, his home race especially. 2 laps remaining, and he's held his nerve very well so far. 2 laps more to go. Stiffmeister just needs a good sector 1, and then he's going to have a real good go down the back straight.
Indeed, all the pressure in the world for Phenom, the homeland hero, trying to take victory at the Circuit of the Americas. 2 laps left to go, and Poya now up in 4th after getting let through by their teammate Junuvane and Mo leader into the pits. I wonder if that's going to be a 1-lap shootout for a fastest lap attempt for the Ferrari. Try and salvage another point from this race when at one stage they were on for a podium actually, and indeed a set of softs for Mo leader, so that's going to be a push for the final lap. But it's going to be non-stop. It's just going to be non-stop pushing for Phenom, using that ERS battery to defend against the Williams of Stiffmeister. Phenom, no stranger to a fight against the Williams, having to defend, I believe, against Shadows to take his first victory in Austria. Sense of deja vu here for Phenom, this time in Austin. But again, late braking in towards the second, in towards turn 12, excuse me. Phenom always has that extra bit of time in hand, but it's going to get to that stage where it's just going to be an absolute dive from Stiffmeister if he wants to win this race. As well, at the back, Shadows having a fight, I believe, against Nigel Piddle, and now Snedden getting top in this fight too. I think in here Snedden is trying to back up these two, because Silverside Boy, carrying the extra penalties up at the front, is now right behind Junuvane. So he's not wanting to waste any time and put it to good use here is the McLaren. But on the final lap here in Austin, Texas, Phenom leading the way, and he has broke that DRS barrier to Stiffmeister, and that is critical for the Alfa Romeo if he wants to win this race.
Yeah, well, I mean, Stiffmeister got a bit loose out of turn 15, turn 16, and that allowed Phenom to gain a good 3 attempts on him. And look at this now, Law really up on the rear of Stiffmeister now, who might even overtake him on track anyway. As Stiffmeister will not have DRS at the moment. It's very close on the time. Where is that DRS line? I think it's coming up about now. There it is, and I don't think he was in it. I think it was 1.05 seconds. So Phenom now can just relax, or not relax, but he can be relaxed. There's going to be no threat of Stiffmeister down this back straight, as Junuvane and Silverside Boy having a battle as well. Is Silverside Boy going to have another go back at Junuvane? Not that it's going to matter with the time penalties. He is going to have a dive and forces Junuvane off wide, but like we said, he won't keep that position when it comes to the end of the race. But Phenom now only got to do about 3 or 4 corners, and he's going to take the win and the championship lead.
Taking advantage from where he left off, Phenom, round the final few corners now, it's going to be a victory for the homeland hero, taking advantage where others couldn't, and it's going to be not just a victory, but the championship lead for Phenom. 3 rounds left to go, and he's going to be in the top step of the podium at the Circuit of the Americas. Phenom, in his home Grand Prix, wins in Austin, Texas. Stiffmeister, a heroic effort for the Williams, but deja vu this time. The Williams behind the Alfa Romeo at the checkered flag, and Law on their debut picks up 3rd place for the Alpine team. Then we got Junuvane in 4th, Poya in 5th, Shadows take 6th place by 3/10 of a second to Silverside Boy, but still it's points regardless for the McLaren team. Then we've got Snedden in 8th, Nigel in 9th, and Molly, they're on their last lap run, gets a time penalty just out of pity really, and I don't even think he took the fastest lap because of that, but still, what a race that was. And Phenom, the American, taking victory around the United States and doing what his team couldn't on Friday night, winning.
Yeah, a fantastic race from him. Ginny Vane arguably did give it to him with his couple of mistakes that he made, but he had to keep Stiffmeister behind him that whole race, and there was a couple of times where Stiffmeister got close, but he just held his nerve, and he knew that if he won tonight or finished in the top 3, he'd be leading that championship, and that's what he's done, and he is the new championship leader with 3 rounds to go.
Indeed, cool, calm, collected and composed from the Alfa Romeo. Phenom victorious here at the circuit of the Americas. Stiffmeister in 2nd, and Law, as mentioned, despite that time penalty, picking up their first podium in FPRL. Junuvane making the mistake at the start, getting demoted to the back of the field, but recovered for 4th, and Poya on their Tier 2 debut also getting 5th. Shadows in 6th place, and we got Silverside Boy in 7th place. It just didn't seem to happen for either McLaren, but still is points for the Constructors' Championship, and one step closer to getting that sewn up. And actually Mo Leader did take the fastest lap at the line, so that's going to be an extra point for the Ferrari team, but what could have been for them. And then we've got five retirees in the race, that being Tiddlewink at the start, Bolly midway through after crashing into the pit lane, a bit of a coulthard moment for them. Klutschak losing their front wing, retiring from the pits. Then we got Tidjum at the safety car restart, and Stwid as well, retiring very late on for the Mercedes team. It just didn't seem to happen for them either. But still, we will get our podium drivers in this evening, and we'll get our interviews underway in just a few moments, with our winner Phenom, 2nd place Stiffmeister, and if they do join, 3rd place Law.
Yeah, no, he's in the party ready. So we've got all 3 of them ready, Cruiser. When we
Oh joy. Indeed, there you go, a smooth transition over to the interviews with our top 3, and we'll get this Alpine up on screen for our 3rd place driver in Law. And how do you want to do it? Do you want to go through 3rd place and 1st, and I'll take 2nd?
Yeah, can do, mate. That sounds fine, yeah.
Very well, and
right then.
hand you over to Monkey Boy Kurt with our 3rd place driver this evening, Law.
So then, Law, 3rd place on your first race in this league. First of all, we must be delighted with that. And the qualifying performance as well, very strong from you. Unfortunately, that 3-second penalty at the end kind of ruined any chance you had even if you did get past Stiffmeister of having 2nd. But yeah, first race, first podium. How was it out there for 28 laps? And if he is speaking, I can't hear him.
I'm not too sure, but may have a few issues with the connection of Law real quick. You might actually not have a microphone, it seems.
Oh, is he said that in the chat? Oh, that's useful.
I don't think actually I said that in the chat, but we don't quite have a connection yet to Law, but I think actually I'll take you through our interview with our 2nd place driver and see if Law is able to join up. But I'll give him a bit more time to hopefully get his microphone connected. So we'll move on real quick and interview our 2nd place driver, that being Stiffmeister, if you can hear us, buddy.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
There we go. Right, so just all in all, very strong race for yourself. And as mentioned during the broadcast, a bit of deja vu, Williams hunting down the Alfa Romeo, and much like Austria, it just didn't seem to happen, and Phenom always seemed to have an answer whenever you mounted that attack.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations to Phenom. very good race, and yeah, I just couldn't overtake him. I didn't have the ERS, and at the end, certainly not the tires. So, and I felt like we had similar pace. But yeah, if you're in front and you have the ERS, it's pretty easy to defend nowadays with the DRS not being that powerful. So, yeah, it was a bit of a shame, but I'm happy with second place though. It's very good performance. Yeah.
Suppose a performance to be satisfied with, but just couldn't make that final step to win. But going on, I was going to say going on to Mexico, but we'll talk a bit more about the race this evening. Obviously, with the race being postponed a bit more, did that give you a bit more time to practice and really like formulate your strategy going into this race, or did it give you a few more? It give you a few more things to worry about after seeing what happened in the races before?
Well, I actually practiced a little bit less than usual, and I'm still a little bit hungover from last night. So, for me, Friday night is perfect. At the end of the weekend, I feel more tired and less well in the head, so to speak. So, but I had some practice earlier this week, and I felt pretty good on this track. I love Sector 1, so I was pretty confident. But yeah, in the end, Phenom at similar pace, so I couldn't make any progress anymore. But good race still. Yeah.
And going into next week's race around Mexico, is it a very similar track that you enjoy, or is it going to be one of those that you're just going to be hoping to just to pick up the scraps of what is left in that race and maybe even, I don't know, try and stay on a podium or even something a bit more?
Yeah, Mexico has always been a fun track for me, so I'm looking forward to next week. And yeah, maybe another podium would be nice. So my season is pretty much over after some poor results, but if I can snatch a podium here and there, that would be nice. And I think Mexico is a track that I'm good at. So let's hope. Let's hope.
Indeed, all we can do is hope, and indeed, you'll be very satisfied with second place this evening. So a big well done to yourself, Swiftmeister. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like we're going to be hearing from Law this evening as they've left the party. And just to say that, Law has joined back up. Hopefully, that's got their microphone issues sorted, and we should go for an interview with our third place driver this evening in Law, but I'm not too sure if their microphone is actually working as we can't hear them. Also a reminder as well to include your audio in the party, that way we can hear you through the broadcast if you can hear us, Law. Just give him a quick minute.
He just sent me a message saying just invite. He left the party and I've invited him back, but yeah, he can't seem to hear anything. Don't know whether it's an issue on his end or anything. But yeah, I just want to quickly say well on Stiffmeister. Joint best finish of the season, I think. You got a second earlier in the middle stages, but yeah, another second for you tonight. Well done. Almost was the win, but wasn't to be. But still a good performance. And as I say that, we move on then to our race winner and our new championship leader with 3 races to go. It is Phenom, and yeah, what a strong performance that was from you. Obviously, Ginny Vane throwing it off obviously did help let you take the lead, but you had to keep Stiffmeister, who was really, really pressurising you the whole race behind. And your reward for that is a win and the championship lead with Pines Not Racing. So it looks like the last 3 races are going to be very, very good to watch. But yeah, that race from you, I mean, how difficult was it to keep Stiffmeister behind?
Yeah, it was. He was flying through the first sector, so he had me worried through that every time, and then he'd get pretty close on that back straight. But it looked like I had a little bit more through sector 3, so he might have had a little more straight line speed than I did. But yeah, we were running pretty similar pace, it seemed. So I was didn't know if he was gonna try and dive one up the inside, but no, it was good. It was a good race between us, and then yeah, with Juno spinning there early, I was my main focus was just keeping on track and getting no penalties because that's the biggest hurt on this one.
Yeah, we're also one of the only two drivers that finished the race with no penalties in the top two yourself, so well done on that as well. Yeah, Julie Vane obviously we said did make a mistake. Do you think you would have fought him for the race win, or do you think you knew that Pines wasn't racing, you would have just tried to finish in the top three in order to take that championship lead away from him?
Yeah, that was the main concern was finishing in front of Silverside and Pines if he did end up racing. But yeah, I'm sure he would have had a real good run at taking first there because he already pulled out 2.5 seconds in the first couple laps on me, so I wouldn't have been surprised if he would have won that one.
And also, just also to point out with the last safety car, it did look like you were going to come in and then obviously pulled back onto the race in like the last moment. Was that like just trying to get Stiffmeister to come in as well, maybe?
Well, during that, my internet went out, so I had to restart that real quick. Luckily, got back in right when the safety car was coming into the third sector. And no, it was just trying to get the tires warm because they were pretty ice cold from me not being able to control it around there. And then luckily got a pretty good jump on him.
Yeah, it was a good restart, and yeah, you've done what you needed to do, got the win. Now the new championship leader with 3 rounds to go. Back on Friday next week, and we'll be heading to Mexico. How do we feel about that one? And obviously Pines most likely will be racing that one. It almost seems like it could be a bit of a duel between you two with the last 3 races to go.
Yeah, that's the main concern there. Obviously doing well in the race, but most importantly, finishing in front of Pines and Silverside, or how close everything still is. But yeah, Mexico should be good. Not too many concerns on that one. Maybe that middle sector a little bit, but other than that, should be pretty good.
Okay, well, yeah, you sound pretty confident, in rightly so, because you are now new championship leader. Well done on the victory tonight, and yeah, I'll hand you back to Cruiser.
Thank you very much, Monty Boyker, and massive well done to yourself, Phenom, on the victory around the Circuit of the Americas. And it seems like Law has actually finally got the microphone working. If we can just confirm.
Hello, guys.
And indeed, they have. So we've got a Twitch interview in with our third place driver in Law, and obviously Law, massive well done on your debut, no less, picking up a podium. And I think you're fair to say that you made your impact in that lobby this evening.
Yeah, it was quite interesting today. I don't think I had the setup right. I was a bit too slow down the straight, and yeah, I kept on messing up in sector 3 on that one corner, and it just caught me out a few times, and it just ended up not reducing my chances of actually passing Stiffmeister.
Regardless, though, a third place is nothing to be upset about, and I think you've actually made quite a strong claim as well to actually take a full-time seat as well after the race this evening. Obviously, with next week being in Mexico, do you see yourself maybe putting your name down for that race, as of course you are actually a reserve driver? So you hoping, I would say this rather half-heartedly, but are you hoping that someone isn't able to make it next week and maybe continue from where you left off?
Yes, I signed up to this league because well, obviously I found out about this league in TTL, and I've come here, and I will say this, and I don't want to like put down any other leagues, but it's very clean, it's very well managed, and yeah, so but I guess, yeah, it would be nice if someone doesn't pitch up next week and I get a seat.
I do appreciate those comments as well, and hand over to Monty Boy Kurt for any final questions to yourself, and then we'll get on to the end of the stream.
Yeah, no, obviously appreciate the comments. Nice to hear that. Nice, clean, well-managed league. I've always liked to hear that. I mean, I think the only thing I've got is probably if you didn't have that 3-second penalty, do you think you might have tried to a few moves down the inside of Stiffmeister if you got close enough? Obviously, we know if you did get past him, you would have just gone back down into third. But did it ever cross your mind to maybe take a dive up the inside? Were you ever close enough?
I did. There were certain points where I did get close, but in sector one, I don't. It's a very bad sector for me, and I kept on losing it. So if I got a good sector one, I would have passed him down that long straight, and I never got close enough through the sector. But I think if I didn't have the 3-second penalty, I would have just sent it at one of the corners because it was all to play for. And yeah, but when I got this 3-second penalty, I just decided to drive a bit conservatively to make sure I would get the P3.
Yeah. Well, obviously that was the main thing, getting the podium. First race, podium. Can't really ask for much more than that. And Alpine will be very happy with those 15 points. So well done, mate.
Thanks.
Indeed, I'll echo Monkey Boy Turt's comments, and a well done to yourself, Law, and everyone on the podium this evening. But just one more thing before we end tonight's broadcast. Monkey Boy Turt, quite a few candidates for this, but who would be your driver of the day?
Yeah, well, I think it's there's always a couple or 2 or 3 drivers you really kind of want to give it to. Obviously, Law, a good debut for him. First podium in his first race. Poella starting from the back and getting up, I believe, 5th in the end. That was another good race. But personally, I think he's handled it brilliantly. I know he's only gained 1 place, we don't always do it on places gained, but the amount of pressure he was on, and he took the championship lead, I think today it has to go to Phenom.
And there you go, so Phenom picking up the victory and driver of the day vote from our co-commentary, and that is going to be it for our broadcast this evening. Thank you everyone for tuning in and for watching. FPRL will be back this Wednesday, where yours truly and 19 other frauds in Tier 3 take on the Autodrome Hermanos Rodriguez, if I've got that right. 10 points to Gryffindor. Of course, we head off to Mexico next week, and a track that is, I'm pretty sure, going to be very similar to this one, where keep the penalties low, you'll finish up on a high result, but the results are to be found out on Wednesday. Thursday is going to be a Tier 1 race, and FPRL will be back on Fridays once again for the Tier 2 race, which will conclude our week in Mexico. That is going to be it though from us here at FPRL. Thank you to Monkey Boy Turt for joining me again in the co-coms.
Yeah, thank you very much again, Cruiser. Another great race to watch. And if we're together again next week, and 3 great races left in Tier 2, who's going to win that championship, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, hopefully it's going to be a good end to the season, the last 3 races.
Absolutely, all to play for in Tier 2, and you have to tune in next week to find out who can potentially catch up to Phenom. And Pines is making, I'm pretty sure Pines will make their return too, so can Pines respond after losing the lead of the championship? We'll find out on Friday, and we'll see you all on Wednesday for the Tier 3 race. And this has been Cruiser 1872, and thank you for watching from all of us here at FPRL. Good night. Got it right first time.